there's something incantational about poetry. Like it's not only the meaning and the things that it symbolizes, but it's a song. It's something that kind of gets into your core and stays with you the way a line of fiction will, or a line of nonfiction will. But this is like the entire body of a poem is inside you, and it doesn't exist in a single moment of time. It's everywhere. It's mystical. It has it excites me, but it's like mystical. But I knew I wanted to be a poet after writing that first poem, because it was less of like, oh, here I am creating something that's coming from my imagination, and it felt more like I was discovering something that had already been there. When I'm able to kind of make a salsa like perfectly, not perfectly, but like when it kind of reminds me of the food that my mom used to make me growing up, I kind of feel like more authentic Mexican American, which is difficult which has been something that I've always kind of struggled with growing up, and it's something that I talk about in my writing. It's very urban, it's very, Los Angeles based, it's very home, it's very Mexican American, it's very accessible too. Like it can't require too much work to get into. Like I don't want it to be pretentious or sound like hard to get into. Like I want people to be able to pick it up. And yeah, at that reading, what was really huge is that this guy, he came up to me and he says that he was like, I'm from Texas and my parents are Mexican, and your poetry really connected with me, and no one had ever done that. You're raised reading like, here's Shakespeare, here's like Walt Whitman, here are these great poets, and then when you get to a certain age, you realize that none of them look or act or had anything really in common with you. I'm half Mexican and I'm half Nicaraguense. My first name is Nathan. It isn't like Juan or something very typically Latino. So there's that experience of being pushed away from my culture, saying you're not quite Mexican enough. Like your skin's too light and you have that name and you speak Spanish with an accent. You're both too brown and not brown enough. So in that struggle, you're trying to find out like, who's gonna give me permission? And I think what I found out is that you have to give yourself permission. You just have to say, you know what? I'm just gonna write this and I hope one day someone will read it. Leaving LA gave me that distance from that like southwestern landscape, from the dryness, from the palm trees, and that distance kind of put everything into perspective a bit. Being with my family, it's hard to write about them, but when they're, this idea, your imagination is able to mix with them, with your memories, and it becomes a lot more tangible for you to put onto the page. I guess the voice that I'm trying to put onto the page is not only mine, but there are like a lot more people that I'm trying to speak for, and that they're there, and that if it isn't me, it'll be someone else. That's what you hope. You hope that you've discovered something in creating that poem, but that the reader also does that. So it's like, I'm no closer to the writing than they are. We're all in this together.